You ever read a dystopian novel and get that little chill down your spine, thinking, wow, this feels a little too real? Well, that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at Dario Vergari's novel PhoeniX as a kind of mirror for our own time. Its dark vision of religious strife, total state control, and deep political division, and what it might be telling us about modern America. So, let's get into it.
All right, so first things first, let's get our bearings in the world of this novel. This is an America that's already been through the ringer, hit by a nuclear exchange, and then, maybe even worse, completely torn apart from the inside by its own people.
And this is the gut punch. The narrator lays out how society just collapses. And get this, it's not some foreign enemy at the gates. It's Americans turning on each other. You have these fanatical groups from every single faith waging war in the streets. It creates this vicious cycle of violence where, pretty soon, nobody's innocent anymore.
And this really brings us to the big question for this whole explainer, right? How much of this chaotic, violent world is just a scary story? And how much of it is actually tapping into some very real fault lines from America's own history and maybe even its present?
To answer that, we've got to look back, way back, because America's history with religious conflict is, well, probably a lot more intense and violent than most of us were taught in school.
Okay, check this out because this is where it gets really startling. On the one hand, you'll have a scene from the novel PhoeniX where Baptists are literally burned alive on a pile of Qurans. Horrific, right? But then look at the other side. That's a real-life account of a Baptist preacher in colonial Virginia. He was jailed, his followers were whipped, and people, well, they urinated on him through the jail window. It just goes to show this kind of brutal religious intolerance, it's not a foreign concept. It's woven right into the fabric of America's story. And here's the thing, the founders, guys like Jefferson and Madison, they saw this happening. They saw the danger. And their solution, which became this absolute cornerstone of American democracy, wasn't to kick religion out of public life. Not at all. It was to make sure the government stayed neutral, to stop it from ever playing favorites. The idea was to guarantee freedom for every religion by not propping up any single one.
But the novel doesn't just stop at religious wars. Nope. It also imagines a future where the government uses technology to clamp down with absolute control, all in the name of keeping people safe.
In the world of PhoeniX, the government has this thing called the identigramma. Just imagine a mandatory RFID chip for every single citizen. It tracks you, it links all your data directly to a government database, and is detectable from a mile away. It is the ultimate tool for total surveillance.
So what happens if you say no? Well, the novel gives us a chillingly brutal answer. The massacre of Fort Eagle. You have 1,500 people who refuse the chip, so they're cornered by federal agencies and slaughtered. It's a message, sent in the most violent way possible. Compliance is not a choice. Security is bought with force and fear. Now, let's flip that and look at our reality. This is from the White House's actual national strategy to counter hate. And you can see the points here, tackling online hate, supporting survivors, but the whole philosophy is the polar opposite. It's all about protecting communities and fighting discrimination. It's about using the government as a shield, not a weapon.
And this really nails the fundamental difference. The novel's government demands total submission in exchange for security. In our reality, the stated goal is to have security programs that are fair, that are focused, and that actually protect our civil liberties. It's a commitment to preventing the exact kind of oppressive nightmare we see in the book.
Another parallel that just jumps off the page is the kind of political rhetoric you hear in the novel. It's driven by these charismatic, divisive figures who all promise a return to some kind of glorified, perfect past.
Listen to this line. It's spoken by the narrator's very patriotic aunt in the book. Does that sound at all familiar? It's almost impossible not to hear the echoes of modern political slogans, especially Donald Trump's Make America Great Again, which taps into that exact same powerful nostalgia for a time that maybe never was.
And here again, you see the official policy contrast. The current U.S. government strategy talks about a whole-of-society approach, aiming to build greater unity. The idea is that division itself is the threat. So while that return to greatness rhetoric is a huge part of our political landscape, the stated institutional goal is to overcome that very division.
So this is where it all comes to a head. If the seeds of this dystopia exist in our past and in our present, what does the path forward actually look like? How do we stop this kind of future from ever happening?
Well, in PhoeniX, the state's solution is just terrifying. They have a device called the Karen helmet. They strap it onto dissidents, and it uses electromagnetic fields to literally rewire their brains, forcing them to change what they believe. It's unity achieved by completely erasing individuality.
And that horrifying idea brings it right back home to us, forcing us to ask a really tough question. In our own world of deep, deep divisions, how do we build bridges? How do we find unity without resorting to coercion and without demanding that everybody think, believe, and act the same way?
The novel doesn't give you an easy answer. It ends with the narrator asking this one final, haunting question. He's been broken and reshaped by his world. And it's a question we could ask about America itself, couldn't we? Can a society fractured by hate and division truly rise from the ashes of its own conflicts and become something new? The book leaves you hanging, and so far, so does reality.